A couple of things that I saw that I really thought were cool too. Step 5 and Step 6, which is or the X Factor 5, X Factor 6, which is test and improve and listen and shift, which kind of go hand in hand a bit, right?
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that most entrepreneurs don't, it's funny because they're almost myopic in their approach. They this is my little baby. They built this better mousetrap, but they're not willing to take a look. And I know with the test and improve, you talk a bit about website, changing colors, changing placement of buttons. I'm totally into that. I think that's the coolest thing to do that. But do you mind giving your take on just how to really what an entrepreneur should look at and testing and improving? What kind of guidelines or potential can you put forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's really so the whole process, at heart, I'm a direct marketer, where that means that we'll put an offer out there to a targeted group of people and see what happens, and being able to track and test return on investment. So, from a very, very low level kind of vantage point, I was working with one of my buddies who's a dentist, and just we're kicking around some ideas while we're playing volleyball, and he was like, the price of our hard goods now for silver for his fillings or something had gone up. I'm like, that's perfect. That's a great time to then send out a letter to your customer or your patients, telling them about the reason why this has happened, and we're gonna, if you want to schedule an appointment before this date, we'll let you prepay for your for whatever, I forgot what the procedure was. And he said he had his best month ever. Now, of course, if he was doing a little bit of testing or tracking around that, well, he was doing the tracking because he could see what that offer was. But if he was doing some testing, he might put out 2 different offers, where one might be that you don't have to pay for 12 months kind of thing, or pay over 12 months of payment type, versus pay in full for a discount. And then he could put out 2 letters to his patient database and see which one's better. So you can do it on a small scale. You can do it on a larger scale. The web has really created some great tools for us to be able to track what's going on. And you can drive yourself crazy with this. And I'm not really a numbers analytical person, so I'd rather have people that are really excited by it do that kind of stuff. But when you get into it, it gets really exciting. And you'll be amazed at the changes. Literally, so we start with the biggest elements. So on a page, it's going to be the first thing that people see, which would be your headline or whatever is your biggest benefit-laden thrust.
Yep.
So if you can put a few different headlines out there, see which one's going to work, and then of course you got to have what's your most important function of the site. So if it's to get an order, then we're going to be tracking what the conversion looks like. If it's going to be just to get an opt-in, we're going to be tracking what that conversion looks like. If it's going to be to get a like, we want to track that. But absolutely 100,000% changes in that headline are going to have direct impact changes to what actions people take, how long they stay on your page, and how they engage. And then even little stuff my friends have tested colors on their website and had dramatic effects. Size and colors of their order now buttons and add to cart buttons. So every little thing has a process. So then you start looking at, okay, what are the other key elements? So if we're an online commerce business, then your shopping cart has a big effect on revenue because there's massive shopping cart abandon or massive order form abandon. So we start looking at what can we do. If we put a testimonial right next to the buy now button, does that help or decrease it? Believe it or not, sometimes it decreases stuff that you think is like an automatic lock-in. We're going to add more testimonials, and then I've seen that affected in a reverse way. So just start thinking like that if you can, and even if it's on a small scale. And then there's lots of resources out there about what statistical variance, what statistical significance you need to make a good sized test. I was in just the other day, I spent time with my buddy who runs a company called Boardroom, and they mail about 50 million direct mail pieces a year. I'm like, God. And so their test panels are 25,000 mail pieces. I mean, that's a whole lot for most small entrepreneurs. Yep. But they need to be at a very, very high statistical significance that they are sure that what is testing is actually working and what's going to help them. So that's part of that listen and learn and shift process, like we talked about, the pivoting and seeing what's working in your business. But if we think about, always constantly making our process, our sales page, our our business better, then you got that continuous improvement, and you're only going to keep getting better and better, which leads to better bottom line results, where we can then afford to buy customers at a better price point. So, really it comes down to what can we spend to acquire a customer.